Oh, it's that time again. It is hump day and many of you are already probably looking toward the weekend, looking to get that boat out. And I don't know if I'm the only one, but when hump day hits and I start focusing on the weekend, sometimes I can miss the minor details, the small things that you just kind of forget about, just like some of the things we'll see the boaters do in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to the islands of the Bahamas, where this was the scene just a few weeks back. This is the crew of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Isaac Mayo, and they were out on routine patrol when all of a sudden they spotted something a little strange off of Water Key, which is an uninhabited island approximately 30 miles off the Cuban coast. Once the Coast Guard crew arrived on the island, they noticed exactly what the oddity was. This island was no longer uninhabited, as 9 Cuban migrants and a dog had wound up on the island after their vessel they used to leave Cuba in an effort to try and make it to the United States wound up sinking just off the coast of the island. These 9 people and their 4-legged friend got exceptionally lucky as there was no supplies on this island, and if they would have been there for any kind of period of time, things could have definitely gone another way. And in the end, the Coast Guard winds up transferring the migrants over to the Bahamian Defense Force. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Indonesia, where this was the scene just a little over a week ago, where in the early morning hours, the ferry vessel Satya Kanaka 3 was moored in Kumai. Shortly after midnight, all the passengers were successfully loaded off the vessel, only leaving a few vehicles to remain in the cargo hold of the ship. A little over an hour later, the crew decided to start unloading the vehicles off the ship, when all of a sudden, while unloading a truck on the portside ramp, the vessel took on a severe list. As seen in the images, the truck actually falls into the river. The vessel continues to take on water and finally winds up partially capsizing and sinking on its side. Fortunately, in this situation, all the passengers and most of the crew had already disembarked the vessel and no injuries were reported. An investigation has been launched to try and determine what the cause was. Right now, it's believed that the vehicle actually got stuck in the door of the ship, causing the vessel to list, shifting all the cargo to the port side, finally causing it to go over. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Costa Rica, where this was the scene just a few days ago when a bulker wound up striking a crane in Puerto Moen. The vessel is the bulker Irma, and it actually arrived in Costa Rica earlier in the day and initially berthed at a breakbulk terminal on the port's small commercial side. It then appears, according to AIS data, that the vessel was then requested to move to a different berthing, so the vessel began to move, but for some reason did so with all 3 of its cranes in the upright position. Here the Irma can be seen approaching the new berthing with both of these cranes in the upright position. Here it clears the first STS gantry crane because that crane was actually raised, but the second one is not going to get so lucky, and it winds up being a very tense scene. Now the Irma gets fortunate as its first crane is able to slide underneath the gantry, but unfortunately the second crane is actually facing toward the tower. Somehow, miraculously, the giant crane winds up standing and the crane on the Irma gives first. Fortunately, in this situation, no injuries were reported and there is an investigation underway to try and determine exactly what happened here, but at this time there have been no details released. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Bermuda, where this was the scene a little over a week ago when a vessel was fueling up at a marina and things go terribly wrong. What's really impressive about this scene is how fast the gas station attendants jump into action. These guys come flying out of nowhere trying to get the fire under control. This vessel was later pulled off this dock and out into St. George Harbor, so the fire couldn't extend to any other vessels or buildings at the marina. And somehow, miraculously, there were no injuries reported in this incident either. And of course, our last piece of news for this week will take us over to Fort Lauderdale, where this week is the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show, one of the largest boat shows in the world. It starts on Wednesday, October 26th, and will go through Sunday, October 30th. We will be there Saturday, October 29th at 4 p.m. at the Convention Center in the seminar room, hosting a seminar on how to take your boat to the Bahamas. Would love to see you guys there. And as always, if you guys ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit me up on Facebook or Instagram and let me know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like RMC 613, Miguel Solana Riviera, and Jamie Hiller did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here.